Good evening, and welcome to the joint meeting of the MILLBRAE City Council and the MILLBRAE Parking Authority for agenda item 7-9 only. And regular meeting agenda for April 11th, 2023, 7 o'clock. We've just come back from a closed session, which will be reported out shortly. And with that, if we could please do roll call.
Absolutely, Mayor. Councilmember Pappen?
Here.
Councilmember Cahalan?
Here.
Councilmember Fung?
Here.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Here.
Mayor Schneider?
Here.
All members of the City Council and MILLBRAE Parking Authority are present.
And if everyone could please join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Just tonight's meeting, we're trying something new, and we hope that the public watching on Zoom, watching on TV, watching later, if you have problems with the new technology that we're introducing tonight, please let us know. We're considering this part of our continuous improvement and our language accessibility. So with that, the first ceremonial presentation is actually a demonstration on this new tool called Worldly Language Access. And we have a presentation from Kirk Hendrickson from Worldly. Mr. Hendrickson, could you please join us?
Thank you, Mayor. It is our pleasure to be able to speak with you this evening and show you a little bit about how this new technology works. I am Kirk Hendrickson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Worldly. I've been working with the staff here in the city of MILLBRAE to help introduce this new capability to expand language inclusivity in the meetings, such as the council meetings that we're having here. And so what I've been asked to do is to provide a brief demonstration of how the service works so that you can all start to experience it and start to understand what we do here at Worldly. So with that in mind, I will try to make sure I keep near the microphone here, but I will share my screen and so we can see a little bit about Worldly. So what I have on the screen right now is the basic idea of Worldly, is that it is able to capture everything that is being said during the meeting. It is capturing whether people are in the chambers or whether they're joining via Zoom, and it's then able to display that. In this case, it's through a transcription in English that I happen to be showing. However, Worldly supports the ability to follow along in 26 different languages, and so what I've done is I've set it up so that if you'd like, you could say, for instance, not only follow along in English, but we can also follow along in Spanish. So you now see the real-time simultaneous interpretation occurring in Spanish as well as in English. And then I also happen to have it set up so that you'll be able to follow along in traditional Chinese as well. So we are now following along in all of the different languages, assuming I can, sorry, I gotta scroll down my screen just a little bit here. Let me get it towards the bottom, perfect. Okay, so now what you're seeing is that all three languages are occurring simultaneously in real time whether you're wanting to follow along in traditional Chinese, following along in Spanish, or following along in English. All this is done through artificial intelligence. It's 100% artificial intelligence. And what this means is this allows us to really increase the breadth of languages that are available. More so than what you're typically able to do with in-person interpreters. In-person interpreters are extremely good at their jobs, but they're just logistically very challenging sometimes to be able to support all the languages that you need. And that is one of the roles that we are trying to serve here with Worldly. In addition, you do have other abilities with the Worldly system. You will notice that there are some signs around for the chambers, for example, where you can actually follow along directly on your own devices. So you could, for instance, scan your device and be able to follow along on that device. One of the advantages of following along on your device is that not only can you read along, but if you would like, you could also wear a headset and choose to listen along in your preferred language. So this will also make it accessible for those who may not find reading to be the preferred way to be able to hear the translation. So with Wordly, this is our primary objective, is to really provide inclusivity, and truly inclusivity, whether you prefer reading, whether you prefer audio, whether you prefer to be able to follow along in Spanish, Chinese, or any of the languages that we support. And so I was asked to, introduce this, but I did want to keep it very brief, because I know you've got some very important business to attend to, and I was also told there might be some questions. So with that in mind, I'd love to entertain any questions that you might have about the Wordly system.
And thank you, staff, for bringing this forward. And council, questions? Councilwoman Pappen.
This is great. We've been waiting a long time. We're still waiting on translations from about 3 meetings ago. Chinese that were promised us. Just because I see Armenian in the audience, does it translate Armenian just to test this out?
Not today, unfortunately.
Not today.
We are constantly improving. Wordly was launched in 2019, and when we launched, we had 13 languages. Since then, we've doubled the number of languages, and we're continuing to strive to increase the number of languages every year.
As far as our population goes, if you can cover Chinese and Spanish, I think we're heading down the right direction.
Fantastic.
So this is very exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, if I may, just relative to the translation that the councilwoman had brought up, that has been done, and it has been presented to the city council. So our city clerk just texted us and said, please check your email.
It's actually also in tonight's minutes.
Thank you. We'd love to see a demo on it, obviously, but I think it might take some time for the public as well as our staff and this council as well to get familiar with this new tool. I'm under the assumption, if I may ask, that as we are speaking here on the council, with the audience, let's say whether it's here or at home using Zoom, how would they be able to listen in their own native language so they get to understand what we're saying here rather than reading, following the text?
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't I go ahead and show you how that would work with a quick demonstration here of the audio component. And I'm going to reset these. And is there a preferred language you'd like to maybe hear it in, Councilman Fung?
如果你可以講中文嘅話，就非常之好。
So you'd like to hear it in Chinese, great. So what we'll do is we'll switch over here to Chinese, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable the audio piece for us. And normally we would set this up ahead of time so you don't have to worry about it, and also if you've scanned it using that QR code, it will automatically happen. So what we can do is that right now I believe I'm sharing my audio, and hopefully it will come through. If not, I do apologize. It's more going to be a Zoom share issue than anything else. I'm not sure. Are we sharing the audio on Zoom?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
The only computer that can have share audio on the Zoom is the MCTV computer.
Got it. All right. So with that in mind, probably the other way that we can do this is that if you happen to have your own device, you'll notice that there are a series of QR codes that are around. I believe there's a QR code on the agenda. What you can do is you can scan that QR code directly. And then once you've scanned the QR code, you'll be able to then, so you scan the QR code, and then it's going to join in your preferred language. So we'll join in Chinese. And then what's going to happen is, if you don't mind, I'll approach and show you. As people are speaking, you'll be able to see it coming through here. And then if you want to listen, you can unplug this and let me turn it off of silent. And so in a moment, we're going to start to see it. We're going to start to hear it coming through in the Chinese. And it just takes a few moments to get that playing. Hopefully I've got the speaker on. Sorry, this is a little bit of an impromptu. So it always has the setting. I'm sure my headset is delightfully speaking to me in Cantonese right now.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
No worries.
I'm sure this is the first time we're using it, and I'm just grateful that we're finally at a point where we can deploy certain technology that help enable our community to be able to be more engaged and understand everything that we're saying on the council. And also this council be able to understand everything that our constituents has to say to us in real time. So I'm pretty sure our staff will continue to work with you to and refine and how we can integrate this tool and all the feature that is available to change just every little aspects of how we serve our residents every day. I mean, it's not just about our council meeting, obviously. Multilingual access and equitable access to government is not just about this council meeting, but it's also every little aspect, whether it's servicing folks on the counter, right? Talking to our residents, let's say they come in for a meeting, for example, let's say they get a ticket, they want to get help, for example, they get a code enforcement letter, how do they deal with it? All of those things will need to be more inclusive so that we get to serve our people better. And that's what this is about. This process and this effort is about. And I want to thank you for bringing this forward to us.
Member Fung, could you say something in Chinese?
So
我頭先啱先至講咗，我剛才頭先用中文發問一個問題。
No, are you, well, it's, so remember
That's what it
the
says.
Chinese,
So I need to
but
change-
remember there's multiple dialects of Chinese.
Okay, hold
If
on,
I-
hold on.
if I also-
One voice here. Please go ahead.
So just as a reminder, so we're getting used to things, and one of the things is there are multiple dialects of Chinese, and I think Eduardo might have switched it to selected a different dialect than what the councilman was saying.
I'm pretty sure as we try to deploy this technology, some integration will need to happen.
Yes.
Yeah, I used to be in technology, so I understand as technology was built and made available, although it's there, it takes a little bit of integration work to make it work for the specific application that we're trying to address. So, no, I did not say I lost my mind. I can promise you that.
Well, we're trying to test this here. So now does Eduardo have the right Chinese and what are we going to see?
If I may speak on this. So there's a few things. If you are speaking English, it's already set. However, if someone want to speak in Chinese and you have it interpreted to another language, like to English, for example, Eduardo would have to be the one that select the language. So for tonight, if we have any public speaker who want to speak in a different language other than English, please let us know ahead of time so we could have that setting ready and it will be able to be translated. And as Kirk mentioned, so if you want to hear translation, like, speaking out rather than reading, just press that little speaker icon on the app, on the browser, and then it will just play the translated.
Here is what I would recommend. Tom, if you don't mind, I'm sure we have some IT brilliant mind within our City Hall staff here that they can work with this organization to bring about this integration effort so that when we bring it back, we make sure every angle has been polished, every little aspect has been addressed so that we can completely roll it out in a format that serves everybody. Does that sound good, Tom?
Yeah, that sounds great. And thank you for that. And we wanted to introduce it tonight to see if we're going down the right path. I definitely think that this product in real time is the best that we've been able to research and uncover, and also local San Mateo County business. So if this is something the city council says, let's move forward and then most definitely we will do that.
Madam Mayor?
Hold on. We've got Councilwoman Cahalan. Oh, I thought.
I mean,
Okay.
I just think in general, this is wonderful. It's very exciting to bring this accessibility to our residents and moving forward with it. I just really looking forward to as much publicity as we can through all of our channels so that residents are aware that this is available and that we have it now.
And hang on, Councilman Pappen, I'll come back to you. So again, are you bringing it back to us at a future agenda item to purchase the contract? Because we haven't talked cost or anything like that. That would come back to us in the future.
Correct.
Then you had mentioned that people could bring it up on their phone, they could do audio. I was wondering if we needed to maintain a set of iPads or something cheaper than a laptop here in council chambers. But it's one thing to be reading, it's another thing to have the audio going. So, which would also mean then that we'd have to have some processes in here of you're wearing a headset, then it depends if it's a heavy duty headset, sound counseling, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot more work to be done here on that.
Yeah, Mayor, and that's a good point. I think a couple of things. So tonight we do have, if anybody in the audience, we do have headsets for people that may need them. We have a couple of different laptops, just to, for the audience tonight. Also, one of the things is our microphones. So we're going to have to invest in microphones that actually, as you know, pick up, the verbal communication. So when these microphones, as you turn your head, we found that you have to speak directly into the microphone. So also, last year or year and a half ago, staff brought some upgrades to the council chambers to the city council. I think we're going to have to revisit that in terms of display monitors and other things and upgrade City Hall or the council chambers. So we'll be bringing that. Again, tonight we believe that this is a great product. Wanted to introduce it tonight. Make sure that council was agreeable, and now we can launch into it and make the investment. And that investment, not just one time, but in perpetuity.
So additional questions then. As someone, I have a neck injury that makes typing difficult. So I started using Dragon back in the 90s, and the error rate was pretty incredible. So I'm watching tonight and saying, this is pretty darn good.
Thank you.
And how much the world has changed since then. It is pretty, even those of us with our own inflections and things like that. But are we only going to use it for city council? Are we going to use it for planning commission? Are we going to use it for park and rec? Is it only here within council chambers? Will it work up at the rec center? Would this be something, I'm hopeful that as all of our facilities are improving and we're meet in MILLBRAE, that other government agencies like SFO Roundtable meets here in MILLBRAE, that these tools could be used for that. And it gives us one more thing that we can sell our space for on that. So will we be looking just now only for council and then planning? I would think would be the way it rolls out, and then eventually to all of our committees?
Yeah, Mayor, we'd like to fully integrate this into our daily business. We had discussions about incorporating this in our lobby for, staff personnel. People come in, need multiple languages, that we could use this in our lobby on a daily basis, and this just becomes the way we deliver service. So
Excellent.
Committees, commissions, obviously the council, when we have community meetings and engagement meetings, that we would use this. And the way the pricing works, and we can bring this back, it's an hourly rate.
Okay.
And, in talking with the company, there's a discount rate by the amount of hours used. And I think it gets down to over 500 hours. The cheapest is $105 an hour.
You can get lower.
So
that's a separate discussion.
Okay, so yeah, and I don't want to get into it, but I think it's very cost effective, especially when we have to, if we'd have to bring in, 3 or 4 different interpreters with different languages as we've done in the past. So our recommendation is that we work and we evolve this into just in the daily function, daily business of the city.
We had our council meeting 2 meetings ago on generator power due to the storms, and we had to close the rec center, which meant everybody trying to get their AARP tax help came here to City Hall, and I was working here. So that tool helping in City Hall would have been great because we had to go find people for the languages. So I see that. Councilman Pappen, and then I think Councilman Fung had another question. Go ahead.
So we're supposed to be testing this out. I still have not seen a translation. If someone is speaking Chinese, we need to see it in English. I can see we have English translated into Spanish right now. So I need to know if a resident is speaking Chinese, I can read the translation.
So currently we support 2 different forms of Mandarin. We support mainland, so simplified Chinese, and then Taiwanese Mandarin. We are in the process of adding Cantonese. And so we...
Councilmember Fung, were you speaking which Chinese, please?
speak both Mandarin and Cantonese.
So I would like to see an example, please.
So if, so you speak mainland Mandarin? Or,
There's only one Mandarin as far as I'm concerned, but
well,
yeah.
fair enough, but so if you switch it to simplified Chinese and then, and if you wouldn't mind speaking in Mandarin.
So let's do this. I think it's nice to see a demonstration, obviously, but I think the purpose of this here today is to introduce a tool
Yes.
so that, this, and to determine whether the moving forward wise, in terms of direction, how this tool could be used for the purpose we have. What I do like to see, if the council would entertain, is that we bring back a work plan in terms of how to scope out how we're going to, first of all, we need to have an integration plan to first integrate it with the council meeting so that all the audience would be able to speak a second language and be able to have it interpreted to the council and vice versa. That's number one. After that, we have to come up with some sort of a rollout plan to integrate that into, Tom, just like what you said earlier, to the rest of the daily business that we conduct every day, whether it's at the city hall, the rec center, and how we assist our residents moving forward. And obviously, this will take months as we progress. But I do like to see the staff come back with a recommendation on that work plan and that integration plan so that we could discuss it. Is that the pleasure of the council?
I'm just trying, could you please speak Chinese so I can see?
Gina, I think,
Yes.
I think Councilman Fung stated very clearly a really good next course of action, and we can always test it at that point. Thank you,
All right,
Councilman
well,
Fung.
I'm sorry, I can't agree to this until we know it.
Well, you're not agreeing to it right now. We're testing it, and then it's going to come back in a staff report with an action plan that allows us to hear the things. I think we've heard you want to make sure that regardless of which form of Chinese, whether it's Cantonese, Mandarin Taiwanese, Mandarin mainland, Macau for, that it's going to work. But we can come back to that with a full staff report at a future date.
If I may, the nice thing about this too, to maybe answer the councilwoman's question, is you can put both up. So you can put both languages up and then whatever dialect the person is speaking. So you don't have to just select one on your interpretation. You can actually select up to 24 different languages on this. So I think that might cover the question of which one to select. You can select both. So
And I think some of those integration testing, I mean, there'll be a phase where as you try to integrate it, there'll be some testing to be done. I'm sure a lot of that could be done at the staff level, right? As you work with the consultant here and the application. Chinese, whether it's spoken Mandarin or spoken Cantonese in different forms of Mandarin, as you put it so delicately. Maybe different dialects within Spanish, I don't know, because I'm not a linguist. But what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of testing that needs to be done and a lot of integration work that needs to take place. We should command a work plan to have it get started. Because we're not going to figure all this stuff out here in live meeting here. That needs to be done in the background with some IT help. That's what I'm trying to say.
So with that, given that this was an introduction, I think this is great. Councilman Cahalan, go ahead.
Just one last quick question. How does the translation with just so much colloquialism, since we speak, we all have things like we say, like I just said, or, in English, we'll always say can when we probably should be saying may, and those things don't always translate into other languages. How is that incorporated into the AI and the translation?
So with the way that the AI system works, it's really taking, effectively looking at the probability of what you said meaning a specific term. And so we do not translate specific words, we actually translate entire phrases. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to take, here are variations of phrases, so like can versus a different alternative word that you might use. So those might still all map to a similar outcome. And so because we don't translate just the individual words, we translate the entire phrase, you're more likely to get the appropriate outcome. Now, it is based on artificial intelligence, so there will make mistakes. We're not going to pretend that it's going to be perfect. Sometimes that's because maybe I mispronounce a word, I misspeak. Those things will happen. And so that is one of the differences you're going to see with artificial intelligence versus an in-person interpreter, is that it will try to interpret literally everything that is said, whereas sometimes the in-person interpreter will skip things if they don't understand what was said, if those things happen. And so it is one of the compromises. Now, one of the things that's unique to Wordly is we do provide a glossary of terminology, where what we'll be doing is introducing, for instance, MILLBRAE city-specific terminology. So that might be things like neighborhoods. It might be things like every one of the council members and the mayor's names, so that those things are correctly understood and identified within the system.
You're going to have a great time with Marina Vista or Marina Vista, because we argue amongst ourselves on that one. So thank you. If there's nothing else, I think this is fantastic. I will say there are 24 dialects in Italian.
So Mayor,
Possibile con ritornato in italiano, ma quale l'italiano?
I may point out, when you said Marina Vista and Marino Vista, it put Marina Vista twice.
Did it?
Yeah, so on the AI and the.
So I think having the terminology there, it's always fun too, that technical terms can be difficult. So, but again, from 20 years ago when I first started in this world, this is pretty amazing.
Thank you.
And the media right now, national media, is talking about how AI might be very helpful. I guess this is that example.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, and good luck, staff. And the voice from above was our city clerk, Elaine, who's at a conference right now. Thank you for joining us, city clerk.
And Mayor, our plan is just to continue to keep this on during the entire meeting, so we can continue to monitor it and see how it goes.
Do we need to give staff any more direction here, or is it pretty clear what we need to do moving forward here?
No, I think it's clear. So I think that, there's concurrence to move forward, bring back a work plan, and start to roll this
Trial
out
and
as-
integration first at the council meeting, and then we can do rollout after that.
Yeah, and as quickly as possible, I assume.
Excellent. Thank you, and thank you, staff. Next up is a proclamation proclaiming April 10th, 2023 as Dolores Huerta Day, and Councilman Cahalan is going to read the proclamation.
Thank you. I'm honored to read this proclamation tonight because I have had the honor of meeting Dolores Huerta and being involved in the United Farm Workers over the years. So, whereas Dolores Huerta was born on April 10th, 1930 in Dawson, New Mexico, she was exposed to the hardships that her community faced at a young age, but was greatly inspired by her mother's work as a community activist. Huerta was taught by her family to give back to her community and be a voice and advocate for the working people of California. Huerta's own experience of discrimination and her innate sense of justice led her to become a prominent Hispanic activist. And she went on to join fellow activist Cesar Chavez, and together they founded the United Farm Workers Association. Huerta was vital in organizing workers, negotiating contracts, and advocating for safer working conditions. She also fought for unemployment and healthcare benefits. And Huerta continues to work tirelessly to empower marginalized communities through her advocacy work, political activism, and philanthropy, including establishing the Dolores Huerta Foundation to promote community organizing and leadership development. Huerta was the recipient of many awards, including the Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award in 1988 and the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2012. And whereas we recognize the profound impact of Dolores Huerta has made on countless Americans and her lifelong commitment to justice for all and the many trails she paved for the generations of activists. Now, therefore, we, the members of the MILLBRAE City Council, do hereby proclaim April 10th, 2023 as Dolores Huerta Day.
Thank you, Councilwoman Cahalan. Usually I try to give these out to council, but it's been a busy week, so you're going to have to hear my voice for the next three. But this one is near and dear to my heart. The next up on our agenda is proclaiming April 22nd, 2023 as Earth Day, although most of us tend to think of it as Earth Week or Earth Month. But I'm very happy to read this proclamation. Whereas the first Earth Day was proclaimed in 1970 to unite environmental groups and serve as a reminder of the urgent need to address environmental challenges and promote sustainable practices that reduce our carbon footprint, conserve energy, biodiversity, and protect the planet. And whereas the City of Millbrae has supported Earth Day and its mission since its inception, the city has worked on many projects such as a tree dedication program, community and monarch pollinator garden, artificial turf moratorium, and the upcoming tree inventory project. And whereas the city continues to incorporate environmental elements into the architectural design of approved projects, the new recreation center is designed to achieve close to or net zero. The new Alexandria Biotech project includes bird-friendly windows, and a new bioswale was added at Taylor Boulevard and Ashton and Almanar Street. And whereas the global theme for Earth Day 2023 is Invest in Our Planet, which focuses on accelerating solutions to combat our greatest threat, climate change, we encourage everyone, government, citizens, residents, and businesses to do their part. And whereas the annual celebration is a reminder of the constant need for environmental activism and the urgency of protecting our planet for future generations. And whereas the city celebrates and supports Earth Day by implementing a variety of activities to engage our community's awareness and recommitting ourselves to the betterment of our planet. Now, therefore, we, the members of the Millbrae City Council, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2023 as Earth Day. We hereby invite and encourage our community and businesses to use this day to celebrate the Earth and commit to creating a cleaner and healthier environment for a better quality of life for current and future generations by planting trees, gardening, picking up litter, recycling, conserving energy and water. Please visit our website for more information on our environmental program initiatives and projects. And we have Ms. Andrea Papajan, our environmental director, here to accept, and I'm sure she's going to talk about a few more projects Millbrae is doing in the next few weeks.
Mayor Schneider, council members, thank you for this important proclamation. Throughout the year, Environmental Programs provides programming and events in support of our Climate Action Plan to our residents and businesses. So I'd like to highlight a few of the events we have coming up this Earth Month and into May. There are 4 that I'd like to highlight. The first one is our Arbor Day tree planting and Earth Day cleanup, Saturday, April 29th at the Spur Trail, Taylor and Minorca. All the tools and materials and lunch will be provided. The second one is Commuter Challenge. As you probably know, transportation sector is the largest emitter of greenhouse gases. In California, it's 21%, and in Millbrae, it grows to, in California, it's 41% of greenhouse gas emissions. And in Millbrae, actually that number grows to 61% of greenhouse gas emissions. And so we are encouraging everyone to sign up for the commute.org challenge. We also set up a private network for city staff on the STAR platform so they can find smart transportation and log their smart alternate transportation so we can reduce vehicle miles traveled. And you can win prizes. So we encourage the whole community to sign up on commute.org. The third event is a tree maintenance class, and that is on May 4th at the Rec Center at 6 p.m. This is in response to the request from the Millbrae Community Enhancement Environmental Committee. I'm sorry, I'm really stumbling here. We found an expert instructor, Frank Nikolai. He has been in the business 40 years. He is passionate about sustainability and environmental stewardship. And we also thank Bosca for helping us support this program. So they are helping us sponsor it. And then the fourth program is the Safe Routes to School. We have 2 walk audits coming up. This is through the fellowship through the County of San Mateo that we are participating in. and one is at Green Hills Elementary on April 21st at 7:35 to 10 a.m. I'm sorry, Meadows Elementary, and the other one, May 5th, at Green Hills Elementary. So if you're interested in participating in the walk audit, those are the links that you can register. Everyone is invited to join. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Can you tell the public a little bit more what a walk audit does?
Yes. Thank you for asking.
I can help you.
I'm gonna, no, that's okay. A walk audit is really designed, it's a community-driven process to identify changes in your neighborhood to make walking and biking safer, more accessible, and comfortable for students and the community. So you walk as a group and you identify changes that you would like to recommend could be made. And then after following the walk audit, we'll have a demonstration project at each of the schools. And so we'll be able to sort of test out some of the findings from the walk audit.
Excellent. It is something that everybody in our neighborhoods can help, because sometimes just a big bush that we don't notice can be enough between a car being able to see a small child or not. So this is really important for those neighborhoods or people who just want to learn for your own neighborhoods. Come out on May 5th or April 21st. We haven't done walk audits in MILLBRAE in several decades. So this is really exciting. I'm really happy. This is great. We're going to have some more activities that are also Earth Day month into May, which will be coming up in a couple of weeks. But thank you, and thank you for all your work.
And thank you for the proclamation.
Next up is proclamation proclaiming April 24th, 2023 as Armenian Remembrance Day. And I know we have people in the audience who will be accepting, and it's lovely to see you here tonight. Whereas Armenian Remembrance Day is a national holiday in Armenia and is observed by Armenians in dispersed communities around the world. And whereas April 24th remembers the start of the Armenian genocide in which Armenian notables were deported from the Ottoman capital and ultimately executed. And whereas Armenian Remembrance Day is held annually to commemorate the victims of the Armenian genocide from 1915 to 2023, in which the Ottoman Empire sought to systematically destroy the Armenian culture and people, resulting in the loss of 1.5 million Armenian lives. And whereas, as we remember the victims and the survivors of the Armenian genocide, we also honor the strength and resilience of the Armenian people forced to build new lives. The Armenians bravely forged ahead in the face of unimaginable tragedy. And whereas on this solemn day of remembrance, we recall the darkness of the past and look ahead to a brighter future for the people of Armenia and reaffirm our commitment to preventing future atrocities from being committed against any people. And whereas this day is an opportunity to celebrate the rich cultural heritage of the Armenian people and their contribution to the arts, sciences, humanities, and the enduring legacy of resilience and survival. Now, therefore, we, the members of the MILLBRAE City Council, do hereby proclaim April 24th, 2023 as Armenian Remembrance Day. And if we could have Grace Andonian, the principal of KZV, Armenian School in San Francisco, who will be accepting.
Good evening, Mayor Schneider and council members. My name is Grace Andonian, and I'm a proud resident of MILLBRAE and the principal of the only Armenian school, KZV Armenian School, which is located in San Francisco. It's the only one in Northern California. On behalf of the Bay Area Armenian American community and the Armenian National Committee of America, San Francisco Bay Area chapter, thank you for once again joining our community in marking this somber remembrance as we mark the 108th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. Despite the unequivocal acknowledgement of this crime as genocide by Congress and President Biden, Turkey, and Azerbaijan continue to deny that genocide took place, and the consequences of its denial are seen on this day as Armenians in Artsakh face a 120-day-long blockade by Azerbaijan, cutting them from food, medicine, fuel, and connection to the rest of the world. Council members, as I am sure you are aware, much of our community are descendants of survivors of the Armenian genocide. My grandparents were survivors as well. And as we see Azerbaijan continue unabated in its aggression and ethnic cleansing of Artsakh, we cannot but help but fear the perpetration of a second genocide today. We thank you for your continued support and urge you to join us at Mount Davidson Cross on April 23rd at 2 p.m. for a community-wide commemoration. Thank you again for your continued support and for this proclamation. Thank you.
And our last proclamation is proclaiming April as Arab Heritage Month. Whereas Arab American Heritage Month is celebrated annually in the month of April to recognize the past and present achievements of Arab Americans and recognize their contributions to our nation. This celebration has been observed since the 1990s until 2021, where it was federally recognized as a national initiative. And whereas the celebration of Arab American Heritage Month is recent, the history dates back as far as 1527, when Estebanico Azamori and Antonio Bishalani, residents of Morocco and Lebanon, would settle in what would later become the U.S., becoming the first members of the Arab American community that is approximately 3.7 million people today. And whereas this month is an opportunity to promote the understanding, respect, and dialogue among peoples of different cultures and backgrounds, and to combat prejudice, discrimination, xenophobia through awareness, and whereas Arab Americans have faced many challenges of discrimination, particularly in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, and as a result, we must remain vigilant in our efforts to promote tolerance, inclusion, and social justice for all. And whereas the Arab American community has made significant contributions to the cultural, social, and economic fabric of our nation, and as well as their rich history and diverse heritage play an integral part of our shared heritage. And whereas this is the time to uplift our communities and bring a discussion to dismantle and deconstruct hate speech and xenophobia towards impacted and vulnerable community groups. Now, therefore, we, the members of MILLBRAE City Council, do hereby proclaim April 23rd, April 2023 as Arab American Heritage Month. And we have Noor. Do we have Noor? Oh, we have, virtually, we have Miss Noor.
Yes, thank you. My name is Noor, and I'm the Arab Youth Organizer with the Arab Resource and Organizing Center. On behalf of the Arab Resource and Organizing Center, I would like to thank the City of MILLBRAE for recognizing and celebrating Arab American Heritage Month in April. Not only will this recognition honor and celebrate the Arab American community, it will also shed light on our long struggles for equity and justice in the Bay Area, including our history in the farm workers movement. Our organization is also happy to announce our youth-led Arab American Heritage Guide for school districts to adopt. This guide is intended for educators, school administrators, and staff, but includes many K-12 appropriate resources for teachers and parents to utilize themselves. We hope that MILLBRAE can take lead in uplifting Arab American families by teaching about their history as part of the expanding ethnic studies and history curriculums in the Bay Area and nationwide. You can find the guide on our website at araborganizing.org. Thank you.
Thank you. And I look forward to meeting with your organization. Several of us are part of a sister city group to Palestine in a couple of months and would love to talk to you before we go. So if you could reach out to me, that would be lovely. And for the record, this is a friendship city with Ramallah. I've been told I'm going to pronounce it, the accent is in a different place, but it is paid for by myself and by Millbrae Elementary School District Trustee Maggie Musa. We're paying for it ourselves. So with that, would love to meet with you. Thank you. Okay, City Manager, next up is agenda overview and staff briefing.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening to you, members of the City Council. Tom Williams, City Manager. As we move forward to the agenda, item number 2, there is calendar of events, reports of bills and claims, and a report out of April 11th, 2023. Also, item number 3 is approval of meeting minutes for the regular meeting of January 24th, 2023. Item number 4, oral reports from city committee and commission chairs. This evening, we do have a report from the Senior Advisory Committee to present their work plan. Then we move to public communication. This is the item on the agenda that any member of the public can address the city council on any item that's not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Then we move to the consent calendar. We have 4 items on the consent calendar this evening, starting with item number 5. And that is to approve by motion the quarterly investment schedule for the second quarter of the fiscal year 2022-2023. Item number 6 is to adopt a resolution accepting the miscellaneous sewer rehabilitation projects as complete and authorizing the filing of the notice of completion. Item number 7 is to adopt a resolution accepting the 2022 pavement maintenance project as complete and authorizing the filing of the notice of completion. Item number 8 is to adopt a resolution accepting the Upper Hillcrest Sub-Basin 4 sewer rehabilitation project as complete and filing the notice of completion. Then we move on to public hearings, of which we have no public hearings this evening. Then we move to existing business. Item number 9 is to adopt a resolution expanding the jurisdiction of the MILLBRAE Parking Authority to the full municipal boundaries of the city of MILLBRAE in its entirety. Then we move to item number 10 under new business. It's an introduction and the waiving of the first reading of an ordinance amending section 8.20.830 and 8.20.890 and 8.20.900 of Title 8 of the MILLBRAE Municipal Code, providing for the collection of sewer service charges on the county property tax roll. Then we move to council comments and adjournment. And Mayor, real quick, just upcoming events, Friday, April 14th at 6:30 p.m., MILLBRAE goes to the movies. Space Jam's, the 1996 Space Jam's movie will be showing at the Recreation Center, starting at 6:30 p.m., again, April 14th. April 29th at 10 a.m., the City of MILLBRAE Arbor Day and Annual Cleanup Celebration will take place. Thursday, May 4th at 6 p.m. is our tree maintenance class. And Friday, May 19th and Saturday, May 20th is the MILLBRAE Art Show. All this information can be found on our bi-monthly newsletter as well as our website. And then also, I'd like to announce that Elaine Tran, as you know, she's attending the 2023 City Clerks Association California Conference. And we have nominated her for a very prestigious award, both Municipal Clerk of the Year and the Pat Hammer Spirit Award. So she just found out because she doesn't know if she's going to win until the dinner coming up tomorrow night. But Elaine always deserves special recognition. She does such a great job for us, and we hope that City Clerks Association in California honors her with one of these awards. So good luck to Elaine. Also, just a reminder, the C-Click Fix, MILLBRAE Works. We rolled that out last month, and it's working, fantastic. People are really starting to get the handle of it. So we want everyone, C-Click Fix, MILLBRAE Works, please use that. It's very effective. We've got great feedback that when people are using it, they're getting information back when the project repair work has started and when it's finished. So C-Click Fix is really what has been beneficial for residents, and we'd like everyone to get used to using that. Also, summer camp registration is open, so we want everybody to take the opportunity to enroll in our summer camp classes at the MILLBRAE Recreation Center, offering everyone classes from sports camps to art camps to dance camps to computer camps to math camps to language camps. So if you have any questions, please visit the MILLBRAE Recreation Center at 477 Lincoln Circle, or you can look on our City of MILLBRAE Recreation page, or contact them via telephone at 650-259-2360. And Mayor, that just concludes a quick update of what's happening.
Thank you, City Manager. And do we have a report out on April 11th?
Yes, Madam Mayor. City Council met in a special meeting earlier this evening to discuss real estate negotiations relative to the property located at 400 East Millbrae Avenue. At that meeting, the council provided direction.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3. This is approval of minutes. City Clerk, our acting City Clerk Gonzalez, I left you a voicemail today. There were some typos in something specific to that. But I don't want to hold up the minutes on that. So I don't know how we go about it. It was missing some connecting words.
I think you've just formally, now's the time, Mayor, to bring that to the attention.
Okay.
publicly, So it's on the record.
It's not
for
changing the
change.
content. It's just making sure that it's clear that SFO, Airport Land Use Commission, and other entities, when they tell us what we can or cannot do, and yet they do not work on the health and safety of the people of Millbrae. So there are just a few typos in that paragraph on there. So with that, could I have a motion?
So Mayor, just for clarity, it does not change the substance of the record. It's just,
Absolutely
okay,
does
we, there you go.
It's just a couple connecting words that are missing in unless I spoke that way, and I might have, but I just brought it to the city clerk's attention, but it was a busy day with the new Wordly program.
Okay, we will make those corrections.
And if it doesn't, I can live with it. Motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Cahalan. Any discussion? Should have mentioned this earlier. Because we're in a hybrid meeting form, it is my understanding that all votes are done by roll call. Or can we can't go to the buttons. We could go to buttons. Okay. Do we want to try going to the buttons tonight? Okay, roll call vote it is.
Councilmember Pappen,
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman,
Aye.
and Mayor Schneider.
Aye.
The regular meeting minutes of January 24th, 2023 is passed with the noted amendments by Mayor Schneider by a vote of 5-0.
Very good. Next up is oral report from City Commission chairs, and we have Rochelle here from the Senior Commission. I'm flipping my page over. Please join us up at the podium. And is staff helping you with the presentation? And welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
And this is our Senior Advisory Committee Chair, Rochelle Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Rochelle Mullen. I represent the Senior Advisory Committee, and I'm presenting our information for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024. Our committee members are myself, Marlene McBride, our vice chair, Doris Morse, Mary Ellen Pellegrini, Mimi Lee, Mimi Lin, Patrick Cheng, and our alternative, Anita Ghosh. Our review of the past year, the 2021 to 2022, or 2022 to 2023, are as follows. We published and distributed the bi-monthly senior line. We participated and helped the city of Millbrae to achieve its age-friendly certification. We established a database to facilitate birthday/wellness calls and the distribution of matters concerning seniors in the Millbrae area. We participated in city events. We received and disseminated information from various senior organizations such as Self-Help for the Elderly and the San Mateo County Older Adult Committee. We helped to reestablish and support the monthly birthday lunches, which we had today, which was delicious and a lot of fun. We participated in other city events and received information from various senior organizations. And we partnered with San Mateo Journal in hosting the MILLBRAE Senior Showcase this last year. Our work plan goals for the year 2023 to 2024. Our first task is, of course, our ongoing task of advisory body to the City Council. As an ongoing activity, we serve as the recommending body for matters as defined in Resolution Number 16-37. Our second task is to promote communication with the senior community. In this way, we publish and distribute the bi-monthly senior line. We've maintained a database of senior operations to facilitate monthly birthday/wellness calls and a distribution of matters concerning seniors. We facilitate outreach to bilingual citizens via communications. Our third task is regarding programs and fees. As an ongoing activity, we review and make recommendations to the Park and Recreations Commission for review by the City Council for parks and recreation operation, programming, and service fees. Our task 4 is to build relationships with local senior organizations. This way, we connect with local senior organizations to build relationships and increase communication and outreach within the senior community. We maintain relationships with Self-Help for the Elderly, which we did in joint cooperation today with our senior birthday lunch, and the San Mateo County Older Adults Committee. Task 5, participate in joint activities with the Youth Advisory Committee. Members of the Youth Advisory Committee established a senior technology class with assistance from the members of the Senior Advisory Committee, and from what I understand, it's going very well. And task 6, age-friendly certification. We continue to collaborate to maintain age-friendly certification for the city of MILLBRAE. We want the two main areas which we are concerned with regards to seniors is to improve access to senior transportation and to continue improvement in communications with the senior community. And that's what I have.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Then I have one. I've received, as the public may or may not know, one of the things that we found out of COVID is 1 in 4 Californians go hungry every day. And it can cross any race, it can cross, in some cases, socioeconomics if you're housebound. Second Harvest is the entity that is working in Santa Clara and San Mateo County to collect food under a new state law, SB 1383. And Second Harvest has reached out to me to look for local people who might be able to collect food and or distribute food on that. So I was wondering, and I think it would fit under task 4, if you might work with, it could be as simple as putting Second Harvest requests into the newsletter, but it might be more entailed on that. It's also something that would come to the Environment Committee. I'm not using the mic correctly tonight. It crosses our committees or commissions, but the other thing that you'll learn, and we have new council members, if you haven't already, if you have a chance to go out on a ride, it's basically a ride-along with Meals on Wheels. Well, you know Meals on Wheels. So Meals on Wheels, one of the things when they spread to MILLBRAE about 5 years ago, they don't have a volunteer base up here. So the people that bring the Meals on Wheels to housebound seniors or people who've recently been released from the hospital, they come from Menlo Park and they come all the way up here to release. And one of the things that I learned when I did my ride-alongs was if there are newly retired people, sometimes they only want to give 1 day a month. This is a perfect fit for them. But I think that the Senior Commission might be the right place to give me a place to send all of these people to, and hopefully we can create a program that we're getting food for them. I also know that a number of our seniors are housebound, and they used to be able to, when they weren't, come down to the rec center and get the bread program. So if you would be open to adding an additional work plan that looks at making sure that our seniors and then through our other committees, all of our people of Millbrae are getting enough to eat. I
Yeah.
hope you would accept that.
Yeah, I've been going to the community center since I retired in 2010. And yes, I can remember at the old center before it burnt down, that I think it was Safeway that's provided breads and sweets, and that we could, when I was there once a week, that people could buy for a quarter, 50 cents, $1, whatever. Of course, when the building burnt down, we used the portables for a while, and then with COVID, that stopped. Then we also, and I don't know if we are still doing it, but they used to have a program for people of limited means, and they would be able to come to the rec center and get a bag of groceries. All they had to do was to provide to the Park and Rec Department their their income. And if they qualified, then they could come and there would be bags of groceries there. Now, from what I understood, when the building burnt down, that moved to one of the churches, maybe on Chadbourne, but I'm not sure. And I don't know if that's still.
It's still there.
Okay.
You can sometimes see a whole truckload of food being delivered there.
I don't know if they're going to want to come back to the rec center again. I don't know. I mean, that's another option.
Well, City Council, would you agree to adding food security? This is another thing that would go to the new Social Equity Commission too, just to make sure that all of our people are getting a good meals today.
Yeah, they
on
were
that.
doing the breads, when the building burnt down, they were doing the breads here in the city hall. And then, of course, that stopped
Okay.
too. So,
Yeah.
so I don't know whether, we'd be glad to help out in any way we can. And absolutely, we'd be more than happy. That was one of the things that was going to be coming up at the last meeting, which got canceled because of the power outage. But there are people who would like to probably, senior men especially, that would like to deliver food and so forth. So we should be putting it in the senior line. And Jeff and Hannah are the people that we need to contact. They're the ones that put the information in the senior line.
Thank you, Chair Mullen. This is an action item, so what's in front of us is what's in writing. So if someone would if there's no further discussion, a motion, go ahead, Mr.
Thank you, Rochelle, for all your work in the Senior Advisory Committee. And
Thank you.
it's good to also hear that on the task, especially, working collaboratively with the Youth Advisory Committee and being able to bring about the technology class, that helps much of our seniors to be more engaged. Now, today, we just looked at an opportunity where we could use, this AI program to bring about more inclusivity and help, enable everybody to communicate better. This would be the perfect opportunity in the platform where between the Youth Advisory Committee and the Senior Advisory Committee to help test out this software. At the same time, we know that we have a sizable ethnic community, and much of that populations are also in the senior community as well. And frankly, this is the type of program and access that would benefit this sector of our community the most. So I think that needs to be front and center. And that's an opportunity where we can really make some sizable impact and improvement to how we serve our senior community, especially our ethnic senior community. So I would certainly love to see this as part of your task moving forward, working with with the Youth Advisory Committee on how to bring about this multilingual access program into everything that you guys do.
Sure. I would hope that it continues on past the April end of the existing classes, and that it is recurring again for people in another session of them.
Yeah, I am the liaison for the Youth Advisory Committee, and I did bring that up to them. So I think we need to work on that, bring about, maybe perhaps, Tom, we can also bring about some resources for these folks to work together whether it might be a laptop or iPad or whatever that might be, to help them put this program together so they could help test it out and have
Absolutely.
integrated it.
Sounds like a good idea.
Actually, that brings me to another thought. City Manager, I know we've talked about our committees and commissions and giving them a budget. Tonight, we're approving their work plan. Are we approving the related ordinance, or would that come back to us in the end of June for start of July?
Yeah, so the allocation of the Senior Advisory Committee, and this has been going on for many, many years, is allocation of funding for the newsletter. And then they haven't asked for any additional funding like some of our other committees are asking for. So council approves this is good to go. So there is funding for the senior news line. $55,500, I think, is allocated on an annual basis to them.
And it's growing.
Excellent.
Yes, there's some kind of program that whenever somebody comes to the rec center and wants to sign up for the senior line, they fill out the little form, and I get a copy of it, and the lady who is doing keeping a track of our database gets a copy, and I use it to make my birthday calls. And I enjoy the birthday calls a lot. It's nice talking to people, and they seem to enjoy just being called on their birthday. Say, hi, how are you doing? It's another way to find out if they're okay and
A wellness check.
and so forth. Yeah. Yeah. I don't say that to them. I just say, how are you doing? What's going on?
Well, that was the other thing with Meals on Wheels, that it's also just as important to do the wellness check.
Yes.
Councilwoman.
Regina?
Hi, since I'm the advisor to the Senior Advisory Committee, they've been doing great work and this plan that they have together here, and I appreciate the council's comments. We will take them back to the Senior Advisory Committee. It's because we're not supposed to rewrite the plans when they come up here. But there's been some good ideas, and we, self-help for the elderly, the meals that happen regularly. It's an amazing group of great people. And it's just so exciting to see this and look forward now that we're opening up beyond COVID. I think there are a lot of great things that can be done here. And I know the committee's always very eager to discuss different things. So council's permission, I'll move approval of this. And we will, again, what the council has mentioned tonight, take it back to the committee.
We just celebrated 5 years with the collaboration with Self-Help of the Elderly and MILLBRAE. We just celebrated the 5th year. That was a great party.
It was a great party, wonderful party, and such a huge turnout.
Yeah.
So
was
that
nice.
was just amazing. And again, this is one of our very exciting groups, and it's so good to get people out and about different events. So thank you so much for your work, and made a motion. Hopefully we can get a second.
Thank you for your advice.
Second.
Comment. Actually, I disagree with you, Councilwoman Pappen. We have, for my 8 years or 7 years on council, looked at every committee or commission's work plan and made adjustments. That is our job, to look at those adjustments based on the feedback we get from the public and from our city goals. Now, if you want to hold off coming up with adding food and finding out ways to make sure our seniors are hungry to a later date, and that has the vote, so be it. But the other way it could do is to make sure that it is in there, but we're doing the work plan for fiscal year 23, 24.
Again, Madam Mayor.
Again, I'm going to
I said
disagree with you on
This
that.
would be presented to the committee, and as Rochelle had mentioned before, we did provide, there were other.
Okay, well, your motion does not
feeding-
include feeding seniors, fine. And you've got a motion and a second. Is there more discussion?
I'm sorry, we have collaboration to make age-friendly certification and all of that. There's so many different elements of the plan that I think we can absolutely, see where the committee wants to go with this, and hopefully continue what happened in the past where we were giving out bags of food to seniors. And so, again, I just didn't want the committee, I think the committee should address this. Of course, we want to feed the seniors, and we do that regularly by budgeting too, for the self-help for the elderly.
Reason I
Please go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Reason I seconded is because we could say, yes, make this a part of your work plan. If there's no willingness from the total committee or commission, it won't get done. So I think, to the Councilwoman's point, make the, create the opportunity for them to take it back, discuss this strong recommendation from council, and for them to incorporate it. So if you're saying that
But then
that's not the
technically,
case,
they would have to come back and get their work plan
Amended,
updated
yeah.
and approved
Yeah.
on that. So
As
it's
an
an
amendment.
additional step.
And it's just an opportunity for us to create the empowerment of the commission to be able to do for themselves, to be able to take the information in. All the information isn't on the table. Will it demand more men and women power? Will it demand an additional budget? Those questions can't be answered here, and they haven't been answered here. So those are things that I think they would have to consider before just saying, yeah, put this as part of our work plan with the limited budget that we're approving with it for a newsletter or something. So if that's not what you meant, then let me know, because that's what I'm thinking. I just want to make sure that we're working as efficient as possible, and we're providing the commission, because right now the commission had no idea that we would be adding this. They knew that there might be an opportunity for council to add something, but they don't know what that is. And so giving that opportunity back to them to be able to take that into consideration, because while you speak for the committee, I think it would go a long way to have them have some type of input. So,
I'm at, there's seven or eight of us, so yes, I don't make any decisions on my own, of course.
Councilman Fung.
Yeah, I think, just to the Vice Mayor's point, we're here to empower all of you to do what you feel passionate about doing. We're here to give you suggestions and give you resources to achieve those objectives. That's what this body is supposed to do. And we're doing that. So, I'll be happy to support this work plan as stated, and with the suggestions that we made between the technology and feeding the seniors. We'd like to see some of those, strategic goals to be achieved for the benefit of our community. And we see this senior advisory committee and the youth advisory committee as an opportunity to see about these goals being accomplished. So we love to see it done. We love your collaborations, and we're here to help. And we'd love to have you take on these challenges. So, and we'd love to have you bring it back to your committee members. And if you can come back with a recommendation or work plan, we'd love to review it and approve it.
Okay.
Sounds good, everyone?
I'm at your.
Hold on. I'm going to comment to Vice Mayor. I see what you're trying to do. I do understand the empowering part, but I also know that we have our own rule here, and we have historically added items. On this one, I'll vote yes for this, but I'm not happy about it because there are people going hungry every night. And if it's something as simple as reaching out to Second Harvest and fulfilling the quest that they gave me 2 weeks ago to try to find local people, it shouldn't take that many steps and that many meetings for that. I can just as easily go to the MILLBRAE Community Enhancement Advisory Committee, that's our Environment Committee, under SB 1383 and ask them to take on this task, but they don't have that relationship with the community that the Senior Commission has. So I am hopeful when we have goal setting that we will look at each one of our committees and commissions and we look at a way to empower. But then if you're looking at 1 in 4 Californians going hungry, I hear what you're saying, and I'll support this at this point, but it shouldn't take multiple trips back and forth to do these things. This is a no-brainer, and it doesn't take a whole committee to feed people. Thank you. Angie, or Vice Mayor, then Angie.
No, Angie's first. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
I'm just thinking of, in our planning, because we have several committees and commissions that haven't brought their work plans to us yet. And so maybe in our plans and discussion, if we have ideas for them, if there's ways to get that to those committees and commissions so they can have that as part of their discussion and planning, rather than getting it, when just one person is here presenting to us when their plan is done. Maybe that's another way we can empower and help for the other committees that haven't presented to us yet.
And the way to do that is through the council liaison. That's the appropriate communication.
So to my point, I was just gonna add that I totally hear what you're saying, and I understand the urgency around it. But the process, we have to work on process. If we're directing or giving a directive to someone, we can do that to staff. I don't feel as though we have that authority or the ability to be able to just impose something on volunteers. That's all I'm trying to say. And it would go a long way to actually be very gracious in our suggestion and making sure that we get buy-in and not just direct or say, here, we want you to put this on your plate. That's all. It could be as simple as the liaison saying, hey, we had this meeting. Can you amend our work plan? And that's it. They can actually start working on it tomorrow if they want to because they're volunteering. And I don't think that you would need an action of council to start helping people. That's all.
If I, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Rochelle.
I wasn't part of the senior committee, advisory committee back in the day when all of these things were, the breads and the food was coordinated. And I don't know if the senior advisory committee was even part of that. My assumption, it was through the Park and Rec and through the city, but I could be wrong. Marlene McBride was then the head of the senior advisory committee, and she might know. I don't know. I don't know if it was under our purview or not, to tell you the truth. So I don't want to say, yes, we'll do that, when I'm not sure it was what we did in the past.
Okay, so it sounds to me like with every other committee and commission, when they bring their work plan up for an action item, that really there's no point in discussing or adding anything, because at that point, it's a done deal. That's what this means tonight. That's fine, we'll pass it, we'll go
Madam
along
Mayor,
with it.
that is not what this means tonight.
It does mean that. It
Well,
means if
we
a
have a
committee or
motion. Call
commission
for
brings
the
a work
question.
plan in, I'm speaking, Gina. If they bring a work plan in, it's because they have agreed amongst themselves to bring that work plan, and when it comes to council, then it's done. And we can ask them to go back and add things to it, or add a budget item, which is understandable, but this is a new precedent, and this is not how we've done it in the 7 years I've been on this council. So be it, let's move it along. So I'll call the question.
Thank you. Councilmember Pappen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Councilmember Fung?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
And Mayor Schneider?
Aye, and I'm happy with everything on there.
Okay.
And the request was simply reach out to Second Harvest and put an ad in the newsletter. I actually cannot believe that these things are coming this direction. City Manager, I have a letter from the Second Harvest Food Bank asking for help to serve the people of MILLBRAE. Who do I give it to?
Yeah, Mayor, we can collect that letter, and then the staff liaison will work with the senior advisory committee on the direction of the city council this evening and work with them to amend. And I think that these recommendations are very easy to amend actually in their work plan, and we don't have to bring it back to the city council with everything that I've heard tonight. So with the willingness of senior advisory committee, we'd be happy to make sure that these recommendations, and I think you're right, the Second Harvest Food Bank in the senior line newsletter is very simple to do, and I think well taken.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mullen.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, thank you.
Next up, public communication. This is for items not on the agenda. We will take people here in city council chambers first and then on Zoom. And at this point in time, I have no one in writing. And City Clerk Gonzalez is showing me that we have no one in Zoom. If there's nothing further, do you have anybody?
No, Mayor, I do not have anyone
Very
in
good.
person or virtual.
Closing, we will not have an opportunity to test the new translation service. That's one unfortunate thing. It might have been nice, but there will be other times. Closing public communication for items not on the agenda. Moving on to consent calendar. This is item consent calendar For item number 5, approve by motion the quarterly investment schedule for the second quarter of fiscal year 22-23. It's an action item. Adoption of a resolution accepting the miscellaneous sewer rehabilitation project as complete and authorizing the filing of a notice of completion. This is an action item. Adoption of a resolution accepting the 2022 pavement maintenance project as complete and authorizing the filing of a notice of completion, action item. And adoption of resolution accepting the Upper Hillcrest Sub-Basin 4 sewer rehabilitation project as complete and filing a notice of completion, also an action item. And just a point on agenda item number 7, the pavement maintenance, that did involve the 400 block of Palm Avenue, of which I live on, but it has already been cleared that this is, it's okay for me to vote on this because it was not a personal, or actually, Mr. Conneran, correct me, it's not perceived as an, well, I'm not the property owner, but also it's not a large enough thing because it did the entire block on that. So with that, we have 4 consent items. If there's no one pulling something, if we could have a motion in a second. No one wants to make a motion or a second.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Fung, Vice Mayor Goodman. Any discussion? Okay, City Clerk, could you call the vote?
Gladly, Mayor. Councilmember Pappen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Councilmember Fung?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
Mayor Schneider?
Aye.
The City Council approves the consent calendar by the vote of 5-0.
And staff, especially Sam Batista and your staff, great work on getting these 3 projects done. And for our Finance Director, Mike Sung, I encourage everyone in the city of MILLBRAE to actually read agenda item number 5. It is the best explanation I have seen with what's happening with the United States of America's financial situation and what the various sales tax, or I'm sorry, interest rate increases mean and what it means both to the city, but it's just really, truly a tremendous report. And I congratulate Finance Director Sung on this report and City Manager and all the other staff that worked on it. Great report. Public hearing, we have no public.
I just want to make one comment on item both number 7 and number 8. I just want to commend the staff for managing the change order really well. You know, we got a $1.6 million budget, right, on item number 8, and you know, we have a minimal change order, and you know, we have in fact change order to save money on number 7 as well. So great work there. I know this it may not be obvious to many, but you know, this is good management, and that's the result that we're seeing here. As we all know, public work is no easy work, and so to be able to do these things on budget, on time is excellent. Thank you so much.
And I would add, all 3 of those projects came in under budget. So congratulations and good work. Moving on to public hearing, there is no public hearing tonight. Next up is existing business. This is agenda item number 9, adoption of a resolution expanding the jurisdiction of MILLBRAE Parking Authority to the full municipal boundaries of the city of MILLBRAE in its entirety. And we are doing, Mr. Conneran, tonight, we're voting as 2 different entities. My notes here have us only with 1 set of votes. Are we doing 2 votes or 1 vote? Because we're both the MILLBRAE City Council and the MILLBRAE Parking Authority.
Might be better since it's only 1 vote to have 2 separate.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Batista, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members. This item is going to be first presented by, or opening words or introduction of this item will be from the City Manager, and I will do the presentation. But I did want to point something out. On the north wall of the council chambers, you have a brand new map showing the districts. So the council district. So I just wanted to bring that up for your attention. Your Public Works team did put that up for you. So with that, City Manager Williams, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Batista. I don't have much to add other than I was going to give the presentation, but I've asked Sam to do it because I had an eye exam and I'm still seeing very, very blurred vision. So again, this is, as the mayor had just inquired, this is a joint meeting and a joint item of the city council and the MILLBRAE Parking Authority. As Samuel mentioned in the background, back in April of 2020, the city council did implement state law to invoke parking authority legislation and create a local parking authority within the areas of the MILLBRAE Station Area Specific Plan. Given the adoption of the general plan and the downtown specific plan, the time has now come to propose to the city council adoption of the parking authority legislation citywide. And so with that, I will now hand it back to Mr. San Batista, our Director of Engineering and Public Works.
Great. So once again, good evening. So as City Manager Williams did just say, just said that in April of 2020, the City Council established the Parking Authority following the boundaries of the MILLBRAE Station Area Specific Plan. And just at the last meeting, City Council approved a contract for a comprehensive parking management plan that will study several options to alleviate parking issues, as well as analyze potential revenue and funding sources to provide ongoing parking management within the city. Next slide, please. So just to give you a little bit of background of our parking situation in the downtown area, the city owns 6 separate parking lots containing 320 parking spaces. There are 673 designated on-street parking spaces available in the downtown area. Parking is free but limited to 1 to 2 hours in duration depending on the location of the parking space. But as we've heard, individuals are parking for longer than permitted time allotments, reducing parking availability for potential customers and visitors' access. The general plan and downtown specific plan identify the need for development of peripheral garages and shared parking facilities to effectuate higher density residential and mixed use developments. Next slide, please. So staff identified the need for the creation of a parking authority. Expanding a parking authority citywide will better enable the city to implement separate powers not afforded under general laws to manage parking and land assets, to give power to oversee, manage, operate, and potentially construct, acquire, and finance public parking facilities in the city, implement time-limited and paid parking programs, issue revenue bonds under authorities separate from city general funds, better enable the city to enforce parking laws, enhance parking resources, and increase availability of parking spaces throughout the city. The parking authority also will produce financial benefits and security for the city. As a separate entity, the authority's finances are separate from the city's general fund. This insulates the city's general fund from potential financial liabilities which may arise from parking facilities. The authority is also authorized to issue revenue bonds to finance certain parts of its transaction. Next slide, please. During the kickoff and during the development of the parking management plan, staff and the consultant will employ public outreach and education programs to help alleviate and lessen the growing pains associated with the introduction of paid parking and future parking management programs as a result of the final parking management program. Next slide, please. So with that, the recommendation is for the City Council and MILLBRAE Parking Authority adopt a resolution declaring the need for the City of MILLBRAE Parking Authority to function within the municipal boundaries of the city in its entirety. And that concludes my short presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Batista. Questions? Comments? Okay, I have a few. I was at Pete's a couple of days ago, Pete's Coffee, and chatting with the staff, and one of them mentioned, I've got to go out and move my car because I'm past the 2-hour period. What that means to me is that we might start charging them, and a lot of employees who are making barely minimum wage, which now I believe is 15 or 15.50, but paying a parking meter is out there. As part of this, can we encourage business owners to have a TDM plan? Can we come up with a plan that can move employees away from downtown and so that that parking is available for customers?
Yeah, and on that specific example, we have issued, I believe, 7 Permit A parking permits to Pete's Coffee and their employees, so we can reach back out to the businesses. And I also think, continuing effort on the city's part, because we do have a downtown business permit parking program. And so what the parking authority does, we're going to add to the supply of parking. That's going to be the number one mission, right? So fund, finance, and build shared parking and parking garages to accommodate the parking demand in downtown, especially as we grow. And as we know, with state law, with residential, high-density residential, parking is significantly reduced. Given our proximity to the transit areas, sometimes parking is not required at all, but there is going to be a parking demand. And so the entity, parking authority entity, has the governance power to manage that process.
And I used an acronym, Transportation Demand Management Plan, which the projects around the BART station have to have. But my question, and I'd love to see it roll out up into the neighborhoods where there are apartment complexes that have unbundled parking. So the residents are now parking out on the street, which then makes it more difficult or less safe for cyclists, multimodal transportation, and children walking. So there's this trade-off between putting more cars on the street on that.
Yeah, Mayor, just for additional information, so the Office Depot development as well as the El Rancho development are both conditioned for TDM projects.
Excellent.
Or TDM measures.
And at least the last I checked, the transportation demand management programs around San Mateo's train station, where the old racing track was, they put in some pretty hefty TDM plans, and they're showing that people are actually not parking out into the neighborhood. So let's make sure we keep an eye on that. I loved the idea that the parking authority can support or vote on public parking, but I wondered, does that mean that we can also vote if, let's say it's a city lot or not let's say it's a private lot with parking that might be open and available to the public during the day and to residents at night? Can we vote on that? So it's kind of a public-private partnership on parking?
Yeah, so once the authority gets up and running and we've concluded the parking management plan, we'll bring those policies back to the city council and as appropriate, the parking authority in terms of policies and planning. What I've envisioned ultimately is as the city grows and as it's built out, the parking authority actually takes over all the enforcement. And so instead of, for example, the sheriff's office doing the parking control, it's actually under the parking authority, and it's an administrative type citation rather than a citation that's, given out by the sheriff's office. And so we take over the entire parking management. But this sets us up today very early, being able to invoke state law. So you as a city council can wear a different hat that insulates you, that insulates those decisions as it relates to public parking, that you're not, that's what I'm looking for. You're not, you're under the general laws of the state of California. And I think, as you know, more and more state legislation is taking local control away from you. This provides an opportunity for you to invoke some of the controls that you don't otherwise have under general laws. So, but this is just the beginning. A lot of work. A lot of it's going to be through this next year in the parking management plan, how we fund things, how we introduce parking revenue, development impact fees, contributions through, meter revenue. We get that flow of funds. That's why it's so important. We've emphasized that the parking authority can issue revenue bonds. So we can issue bonds, build the facilities today, pay them off over a 20, 25, 30-year term, whatever makes sense. So this is really a governance decision.
My last question then is, I hear from people all the time, quite often people from Burlingame who love coming to MILLBRAE to shop because we don't have parking meters. Today I was at Green Hills Country Club because they sponsored Santa Clara University's golf tournament for women athletes. And I'm sitting around a table talking to people, and they again said, oh, we know MILLBRAE because of Trader Joe's. So if we make parking, paid parking on Broadway, does that mean that the Magnolia lot and the Safeway lot that I believe are owned by the MILLBRAE Square people, that wouldn't impact those two lots? Would that drive more parking onto the Safeway and Magnolia lots? Would that then force the owners of MILLBRAE Square to have to do some action?
No, we would only govern public parking facilities, not private.
Okay, so you could still go to Trader Joe's and park in the Safeway lot for free, and it'll just be those of us who pull in quickly and cross the street and hop back. Okay, thank you. It is amazing how many people do tell me, we love coming to MILLBRAE because you don't have parking meters. So for me, it's a tough decision, but clearly this is the right decision. Other questions? Councilman?
Yeah, thank you. So with this, City Manager, sorry. With the parking authority in front of us, several questions in terms of process and governance and opportunity moving forward. Should the council in the future perhaps consider or adopting parking in lieu fee, for example? Would that go to the parking authority? Would that be part of the revenue stream?
Yes.
Okay. And then also, you mentioned a moment ago, and I'm trying to get clarification on the parking enforcement. Is that also, because obviously currently it's been administered by the sheriff's office. And the enforcement, as well as the tickets, for example, that goes to the sheriff's office. In the future, how would that be allocated? If you can get some clarification on that.
Yeah, so that would be through an administrative citation program, very similar to what we have in code enforcement today.
I see.
And so it
goes
wouldn't be a
into-
criminal, it would be an administrative
So the
citation.
fees will go into the parking authority instead.
Correct.
And we have our own enforcement team going out and enforcing our parking ordinance.
Correct. We'd have our own enforcement team. We'd have our own hearing officer, for the administrative citation program. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, this is an action item. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Second?
Thank you, Councilman Fung. And I think we're going to vote first time as a city council and second time as a parking authority. City Clerk, could you call the vote?
Which one is this?
This is city council.
Councilmember Pappen,
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman,
Aye.
Mayor Schneider.
Aye.
The City Council adopts a resolution expanding the jurisdiction of the MILLBRAE Parking Authority to the full municipal boundaries of the city of MILLBRAE in its entirety by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. And now if we could call the vote for the MILLBRAE Parking Authority.
So moved?
Second.
Oh, second motion, second, very good. Motion by Councilman Pappen, second by Vice Mayor Goodman.
So what are we now, parking authority commissioners? I mean, what? I'm
Yes, so
trying
the mayor would actually, I just whispered that, the mayor would actually be the chair.
Does she have to
Vice
call
Mayor
that
would
to
be-
order? I'm sorry. Does she have to call them to order? Does she call us?
The vice mayor would be the vice chair.
Oh, okay. Does that require,
I think for the record, and if I may, I know we're in a motion right now, but in the future, the agenda will be city council, and then we'll have a separate agenda for parking authority in the future, but we just figured.
that's how we do the finance authority under BOSQUA.
Yeah.
It's a separate, and you postpone, you adjourn, and then you return on
Yes.
that. And it just keeps for a really clean line.
Correct.
Okay, so the motion, there is a motion by what is the title? Do we use the same title?
Chair, vice chair,
Parking-
and commissioners.
Commissioner Pappen.
Yeah, quick
And-
question. Does the chair now have to call this meeting to order?
We already called the meeting to order,
did,
so this
okay,
is just
sorry
the
about
city
that.
attorney asked, just for the record, 2 separate votes because the parking authority was established back in 2020, just in the MILLBRAE Stationary Specific Plan. So the parking authority is now amending the parking authority boundaries citywide.
I was going to change my outfit for the parking. Thank you to staff.
Okay,
Pick your name to
so
Rita.
just for the motion then.
Can we get a different jacket as well?
Commissioner Pappen and Vice Commissioner Goodman, motion and second. If we could call the vote, please.
Certainly, Mayor. Commissioner Pappen,
Yes.
Commissioner Cahalan,
Aye.
Commissioner Fung,
Aye.
Vice Chair Goodman,
Aye.
Chair Schneider.
Aye.
The MILLBRAE Parking Authority adopts a resolution expanding the jurisdiction of the MILLBRAE Parking Authority to the full municipal boundaries of the city of MILLBRAE in its entirety by a vote of 5-0.
Congratulations. Last up, new business. Number 10, introduction and waive the first reading of an ordinance amending sections 8.20.830, 8.20.890, and 8.20.900 of Title 8 of the MILLBRAE Municipal Code, providing for the collection of sewer service charges on the county tax roll. This is an action item, and we have Finance Director Sung, and I think our consultant, is he online? Okay. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Honorable Vice Mayor, and Honorable City Council members. Today we're going to give a very brief presentation on the sewer service charge collection, and this will actually be provided by our consultant from MBS, Tim Seufert. Tim, I believe, is on the line right now, and go ahead and take it away, Tim.
Okay, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Good evening. Tim Seufert from NBS, all the way up the road in San Francisco. So good evening, council, staff, and community of MILLBRAE. I'm going to try and be very brief here, but we're going to walk through a couple of slides, and Mike will join me here and there. We're going to talk about this process of migrating the sewer service collection charges to the county property tax rolls. Next slide, please. Very brief background is where we'll start. We'll talk about the authorization and such, and then the timeline. So the background is literally about a year ago, the council authorized staff to look into this and do some research about migrating these bills to the tax roll. And then November, more information was brought to the council. Our firm was brought in to help with the process, and an informational memo was given highlighting some of the details and talking about the legal review and the statutory ability, given the state statute and the city's powers, to actually affect this. Next slide. So in terms of the details here, to make this happen, there is a bit of a two-step process. The initial year, there is a mailed notice that goes out to all property owners of the city, letting them know that this is to occur. So this is separate from telling people about their rates in a Prop 218 notice that you're, I'm sure, familiar with. So this is Health and Safety Code 5473.1. And then pursuant to the government code, we also still need to do the standard sort of notice, newspaper style, 2 successive weeks. So that's the initial one or two-step process that is done in the first year. From then on, annually, the city will just adopt a resolution and pass that at council, approving the charges, and then those are submitted to the county and added to the property tax rolls. This is a pretty common process. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide, please. So this is just a summarization of what I just said, the key tasks, to make sure this is really clear. So we will mail notice to property owners. We will publish the notice in the paper. We will have a public hearing again. We'll talk about that in the timeline here in May. And then those charges are submitted to the county. All 58 counties in the state of California have this process where they accept various types of charges, taxes, fees, assessments, that kind of thing, typically in August, with the tax bills going out in September. Next slide, please. Hopefully you can read this. A lot of information here. I won't read it all, of course, but to give you an overview of the timeline. So we're having this discussion tonight, and we will deliver a very specific timeline next week to the city. The city will provide commentary back, and we will adjust as needed. Look at the notice that will be mailed out to property owners, make sure that it has the information and is user-friendly and has everything it needs. And then that notice will go out in May. We will help with the resolution, and then the city clerk will publish this notice with a public hearing, which will occur at the end of May and then June 1. And the final public hearing is the June 13th date. And then we really wrap all this up in late June and July. And our goal is to have this all buttoned up in July, although the county deadline is actually August 10th. That's a statutory deadline. And as I mentioned, then the property tax bills are mailed out in September, and they need to be paid December 10 and April 10, if you're all familiar with the property tax system. Anything that, Mike, you want to mention on this timeline, or shall we go to the next slide?
I think we can go to the next slide.
Okay. This is just some notes, if you will, for transition. So there are some residents that are billed, in the odd months, and some are on the even months. So this gives an idea of how this will transition, with the effective date really being July 1, start of the fiscal year. So depending on when the residents normally get their bill, they will either see, May and June, or just June, and then July 1 will transition over. In terms of just your neighboring cities, Brisbane, San Bruno, Foster City have their wastewater, as well as city of San Mateo actually is approximately $70 million that goes on the property tax roll for sewer charges. And San Carlos is also, that's about $20 million. Redwood City recently transitioned to the county tax roll this past year. And I also understand that some other cities are considering it as well. Okay, next slide, I believe. So the benefits, there's a number of benefits, but really consistent revenues. When you think about it, wastewater is a constant source of service, if you will, as opposed to water, which is a little more commodity based. You can turn your water off and on, but wastewater, the system is always there ready to be used, of course. And then there is the volumetric charges. But so there's a little bit of difference between water and sewer. Once these are on the tax roll, they will be part of what's called the Teeter plan. And that goes back to a gentleman named Teeter in Contra Costa County that developed this thing decades ago. But long and short of it is, if the city says we want to collect $1 million for sewer charges, the county will pay the city $1 million regardless of delinquencies. So it basically guarantees the city a consistent cash flow for the wastewater utility. Delinquencies haven't been too great in the past few years, but we never know sort of what the future will hold, and with the economic situation and what have you. So again, this county will put the sewer service charge into this Teeter plan. So it will be 100% collection of what is asked to collect. And actually, unlike a lot of counties, this county also allows for things like schools and public parcels, county buildings and things also to be collected on the tax roll. So it really simplifies the process and kind of a one-stop shop, if you will, to collect 100% of the wastewater charges on the property tax roll. And with that, I believe, is that our last slide?
I think so. There's some
Next
questions.
slide. Yep, questions. So Mike, did I miss anything? Questions? Where do we go from here?
I think you got just about everything, Tim. Just to reiterate what you had mentioned, in regards to the teeter plan, it is 100% collections from the county, and the county does that for us. So it does provide a very steady and stable revenue source in itself. Right now, we're collecting the sewer charges 6 times a year, basically bi-monthly, and this would switch to a semi-annual methodology that's consistent with the property tax roll. Also with this, as these revenues are completely steady with 100% collection on the teeter plan, it can definitely provide a lot more ease for revenue projections and accuracy on that level. With that, as your accuracy goes up and the revenue collection is very stable, you have a higher chance of receiving a better credit rating, and higher credit ratings generally lead to better rates, especially when you go out for debt. If we had to go out for capital debt, higher ratings will give us better rates, which will in turn save the residents money. With that, we're open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sung, and thank you, Mr. Sofert, if I pronounce that
Sofert, yes.
correctly. Council comments, questions? I'm going to start this side. Councilman Fung, then Pappen. Go ahead.
Thank you. As we look forward to implementing this new way to collect the sewer charges, we want to be very conscientious about how it would affect some of the multi-unit property owner, for example, whereby some of them, perhaps some of the tenant might be paying their own water bill, but going forward, the landlord might be stuck with that bill on their property tax. So we want to be able to, and that might be the same for commercial property owners as well. For example, some of them maybe not on the triple net lease, but rather on a gross lease. Some of the tenant may be paying their own water, but yet this could become shifting those responsibility to those landlords. So we want to make sure we do proper outreach to those multi-unit owners as well as commercial property owners to let them know that this is coming, so that they can be well prepared coming into this implementation.
That's a good point, Council Member Fung. So one of the things that we have already been doing is that we do work with some of the multi-housing entities in itself. What ends up happening currently as part of the structure is we coordinate with them. They actually build their own tenants or their residents within some of the multi-unit structures in itself. So we just will coordinate with them so that we get an even division of everything. As mentioned by Tim before, we're not increasing any rates or making any changes. We're just basically collecting it twice a year instead of 6 times a year in a different capacity to ease things, as well as having the county collect the entire amount so that there's very little uncertainty at that rate.
Councilwoman Pappen.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation. Along the same lines of what Council Member Fung was suggesting here, communication to the residents. They may think, here's a windfall until they get their taxes. So I don't know what the communication process is as we transition into doing this. Do we have a set plan for that?
So we are planning to have some FAQs available as well. We'll have something posted onto the website. We're coordinating right now in regards to that. There is a little bit of a timing, as you had mentioned, but it's actually kind of beneficial to the ratepayers actually, because usually you get billed 6 times a year and then you make those payments. When we switch over, if we decided to go this direction, you basically won't have the first payment until approximately around December 10th. So there's actually a little bit of savings, especially if people, interest rates are actually a bit higher now. So there's actually some return now. And then later on, it is a little bit earlier on the second iteration on April 10th. But bearing that in mind, there is a little bit of a leeway, I should say, for the ratepayers because it does switch to 2, and you don't make that first payment until approximately almost halfway through the year.
But it's like death and taxes. It's still coming. So, and now I'm just curious, will that affect the other bi-monthly or the other bills? Are they going to be now monthly? Or are they going to be in the same every 2 months?
This won't affect the water bills. They'll continue to come in as they currently are. It's just moving the sewer portion onto the property tax.
Okay, and I see a lot of sewer work going on throughout the city, especially like Helen Drive and Laurel. So we're actively working on all the sewer stuff. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councilwoman Cahalan?
Thank you very much. I just had one comment for the public, is there is a public hearing on this, but it's not until this comes back to council for a final vote. So just encouraging the public, if you have questions or comments or input, to come to council meetings anytime between now and then, or send us emails so that we have more input as we think about this and process this before the final vote in the public hearing.
I hesitate to, there is no public hearing. Please correct me, staff. This is not a Prop 218 requirement.
Just a clarification, the statute's a little bit odd in the way that it provides for the annual listing of what the charges are going to be for every property. There is a public hearing required with that. That will happen on the schedule that the consultant mentioned. For the
Your mic.
ordinance, you hear me? For the ordinance, there's no public hearing. You're having a first reading tonight, and it will come back in 2 weeks for adoption. That sets the stage, creates a framework for this process to proceed. But there will be, as the consultant mentioned, the first year there's a mailed notice, and then there is a public hearing. But I mean, again, the odd thing with the statute is the public hearing is about what all of the charges are. In other words, for one specific property, the bill is going to be this many dollars. That's what the report, it's a long report because there's a lot of properties in the city, but that's what the public hearing is for. So, I think this is the opportunity, if people have questions about this, switching to this process, this is really the opportunity to do that because you will be adopting an ordinance to implement it.
Yes, just the difference in the terminology. First of all, I love hearing that we're going to get 100% because I understand we currently don't collect about 100 to 300,000 and have to go into collections in that process. So now the county will guarantee us a revenue stream. I did send to the city clerk public comment that I received from a resident, former Public Works Director Sandrini, and hopefully we've addressed all of his concerns. I think you did a great job addressing those concerns with the teeter plan. What I really liked in the staff report, and I want to bring this up because it's going to be in my council comments, is if our bond rating goes up and our interest rate that we would pay if we have to go out, and we are currently looking for $65 million to turn our secondary water to tertiary water. This has very real and immediate implications for that. So you're going to hear me talk about WIFIA, and do not ask me what WIFIA stands for. It is an acronym about a way to fund half of our project that I was back in DC meeting with people about. So this is very exciting for that. And so I'm just happy. I would also point out that at my last BASCWA meeting, they found that Californians did an amazing conservation job between December and March, meaning they used even less water. So of course, SFPUC will be increasing the water per unit charge that much more. And I have a BASCWA meeting tomorrow morning, and we'll be talking about that, plus the governor's other changes to take us out of a drought. So you're still going to see an increase in water when we do go to that public hearing, Councilwoman, because even though that's sent for SFPUC, we still have to bring it in front of our people, right? So that will come back. If not, I think this is great. My last question, Universal Lifeline. I was under the understanding, like for emergency services, we can't know who might be Universal Lifeline, but we as a city can identify people that need Universal Lifeline, or do we use PG&E Care Program for that? I'm a little confused.
We do use the care program for that, and anybody that's on Universal Lifeline, that gets carried over to the property tax roll.
Okay. So who then verifies it once it moves to the property tax roll? Is it the county then starts verifying, or does it still come through us?
It comes through us, Mayor.
It comes through
We
us,
verify,
okay.
correct.
So I guess the thing for the public to keep in mind is if you are in hardship, to at least come and talk to us about what, if you qualify for becoming, or for getting onto the Universal Support Life.
Well, we still manage utility and utility billing. All we do is basically send the bill to the county
Okay,
for collection, so we still manage all of that.
very
So
good.
we're just handing the collections over to the county, basically.
Okay,
Right.
We
the
determine the
county-
number, we determine the program, policies, yeah. This
Okay.
is just a collection, means of collection.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
And-
I wanted to reiterate that as well, that two things. So the county is merely a collection agent. They just want to know parcel number and dollar amount. So the city is very much in charge of the utility charges and how those are appropriated. And the other thing I just wanted to underscore is transparency, right? As Mike mentioned, we're going to have an FAQ, we're going to have a mailed notice. This is going through council. The amounts are going to get posted through a council agenda once a year. So it's a very transparent process. And for the few properties that have, specific questions like larger commercial properties, they will just call our company and we can give them the meter information, the usage. And so if they need to apportion it to various uses within their larger properties, they're able to do that. So again, transparency is key.
And Mayor, just to piggyback on that comment, I spoke with Mike, and this was at some of the direction of some of the council members. We'll also have a couple of community engagement meetings and information meetings that we'll broadcast out to the community, both in person and hybrid meetings, so.
Great. So before I call, go ahead, Councilman Fung.
And perhaps we can send it along with the water bill that this is coming, so that when they get the new bill and they get this windfall, they know they need to start saving up for the property tax payment.
Yeah, we do have a little section on each of the bi-monthly water bills to have that, and that is something that we would consider putting on there.
Excellent. I would, just before we go to the vote, this was something with Councilman, former Mayor Holliber and I, this had come to us as a subcommittee on this. It's been a request from a number of MILLBRAE residents for many years. So it's really exciting to see it get to this point. So thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Sofert. And if there's no further discussion, if there could be a motion. Oh, thank you. Public comment. I forgot public comment earlier. My bad. Any public comment? No speaker slips. Closing public comment, bringing it back to council. Motion second.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman.
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman. If no further discussion, seeing none, please call the vote.
Councilmember Peppin,
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman,
Aye.
Mayor Schneider.
Aye.
The City Council introduces and waives the first reading of an ordinance amending sections 8.20, 8.30, 8.20, 8.90, and 8.20.900 of Title 8 of the MILLBRAE Municipal Code, providing for the collection of sewer service charges on the county property tax roll by a vote 5-0.
Excellent. Thank you, City Clerk. Okay, before we close, council comments. And anybody want to go first? I'm sorry? We'll start with my right then. Councilwoman Cahalan.
Some of mine go back a little bit because we ran out of time at our last meeting. But we had our March Park and Rec Commission meeting, and they're working on their goals, and they want to have a goal that aligns with our council goals. So they're waiting on us to do our planning so that they can round out their goals. Also, we have 2 openings on our Park and Rec Commission, one for a seat and one as an alternate. Something I've spoken with the city manager about and maybe put out on the floor here is, I know with our committee and commission process, we don't have application deadlines. And most of the time, the terms have a set end date, but sometimes people leave early. I don't know if it might help with receiving applications if we had a timeline so that people have a deadline to get applications in and to do recruitment and then schedule interviews. So just an idea to put out there and see if that increases our participation in getting applications. We had the Marina Vista Park Community Open House on March 25th, and we had about 25 people. A little bit lower than expected, but it was the first good weather Saturday in several weeks. And we had the survey option, and I think a lot of people did that. In canvassing, yeah, a lot of people said they already did the survey when I was trying to get the word out. I also was trying to get a sense of how well people are checking their mail. I brought my flyer with me and said, "Did you get this in the mail?" And I'd say over half said, "No, I didn't." So it was interesting to see how many people are not paying that much attention to their USPS mail. Did some canvassing with Measure A, and folks should have their ballots in their hands by now. So encouraging folks to please support our schools. This is maintaining funding, not new funding. Oh, we can't do that, sorry. And then next week, the city council will be meeting with the MILLBRAE School Board of Trustees for the first time since pre-COVID times. So I'm really looking forward to that joint collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Fung.
I'll just try to be brief here. So I've been working with Peninsula Clean Energy. I've been reached out to ask for a support on the Senate Bill 537, sponsored by Senator Josh Becker, to amend the Brown Act to enable multi-jurisdictional body like ours to be able to conduct meeting remotely. Obviously the timeline is a little tight. I think the Governance and Finance Subcommittee on the Senate floor is meeting on April 19. Perhaps we can, in our next agenda meeting with the school board, I don't know if that's too late to be able to discuss that. I don't know if that's possible.
We discussed it. I believe that the city council also adopted a resolution supporting that. That was the San Carlos legislation.
San Carlos, yeah.
Yeah, and we've.
Is it SB 537?
I'm gonna have to check, but I believe that is. And we've sent 2 letters.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, I think they have a deadline, April 13th. So the city manager can help facilitate that, that would be great. It's extremely important because for multi-jurisdictions such as some of these regional bodies,
Just add to that.
let me finish and then I'll
Sure.
let you. It's extremely important to have that flexibility so that we could be more effective, right, in these regional meetings. And then on the, one more thing, just real quick here. Attended the Silicon Valley Showcase Collegiate Tournament at the Green Hill Country Club this afternoon. It's excellent to see all these really talented young women playing golf at such a high level. So, it's very nice to see these things being done here in MILLBRAE as well. So congratulations to everybody who are involved in that. It was an excellent event. So I just want to end it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Pappen.
Thank you. Who won?
The grand prize team went to a tie with Stanford and Pepperdine, and then 2 young ladies, and I meant to get their names because I was there for the awards ceremony. one from Stanford, one from Pepperdine. Anyway, they had lovely playing, and then the wind came today.
So let's see, there were, just to add on to that, I believe 10 different schools participated, and this really was an enormous coup for MILLBRAE Green Hills, bringing out the collegiate athletes. The #1 women's golfer was there too, and it was just a lovely experience while the weather lasted, as the mayor noted. Along the lines of what Councilmember Fung said here, there are 4 pieces of legislation related to the Brown Act. So if we're going to support in general, there's AB 557 by Hart, AB 817 by Pacheco, AB 1379 by Pappen, and as noted, Becker's SB 537, so that our efforts are coordinated along those lines. We hope that the legislature will help us in this process. In addition to that, I attended the College of San Mateo's President's Dinner, their very first fundraiser. It was lovely. Great way to see where our youth are heading here. Just amazing speakers and an amazing event, as well as the artwork that was presented. Spectacular. In addition to that, as was noted by Councilmember Cahalan, just as an FYI, there is an election. You should have received ballots at this point in time. There is one thing on your ballot, which is Measure A, and there are a fact sheet the council presented here. So please take note. We'll see people with signs out and about on that front. Just want to educate the voters here. You have it, then we have a drop-off box right here in front of City Hall. You can do it there, or you can drop it in the mail, no postage required. Attended the Rotary Spring Festival, is our Easter event, which had just a huge turnout. It was amazing. People from all different cities came. So kudos to all the volunteers that participated there. The Caltrain policymaker meeting was a full discussion on funding for Caltrain, the financial cliff that's coming, and then addressing to, hopefully somewhere in the future, all of our grade separations between San Mateo County and Santa Clara County, the current budget analysis for that, which is going to go up very soon, is $11.1 billion. But that's a whole bunch of different crossings, and it's a matter of safety and also timing, reduction of greenhouse gases, and how long your cars have to wait for all of those. In addition to the 2 things important as for the Board of Supervisors today, they passed a resolution prohibiting the expenditure of county funds related to coordinations with ICE. And I believe that will affect us too, because we have coordinated with the sheriff's office. So I think that carries over to what happens in MILLBRAE, which is a good thing as well. I really want to thank staff for bringing forward Wordly today. Looking forward to that enhanced translation. So we are expanding our language inclusivity at these board meetings. And I think there was one other thing, but I will refrain. Thank you very much, Matt. Oh, well, yeah, I'm sorry, there was one other thing. Just remembered, sorry. County also passed a resolution on fireworks. And I think the city of MILLBRAE should be looking at that, because we get too many free fireworks shows a lot of times in this city, and just the fire risk is too great, even with all the water we have here. So we should probably look at what the Board of Supervisors did today in order to be somewhat consistent, again, because we've contracted with the sheriff's office, so we might as well have some consistency as far as enforcement goes, and it would improve our public safety throughout. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, both the MILLBRAE Cultural Arts Committee and the Sister Cities Committee both are currently working on their work plan to be presented to council. Additionally, I was able to participate in a panel at Mills High School with some students, and that's something I'll probably continue to do because I had a great time. And lastly, just be on the lookout. There's bobcats up on the hill, backyard 5 minutes after I went in the house. So be on the lookout for bobcats if you have small animals. Easter morning, I saw on my camera Easter bunny, so bouncing around in the backyard. But other than that, a good meeting. Have a good night. No trees.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I've yet to see a bobcat. Everybody sees bobcats. I would love to. Bobcat, come on down to my house. There's some rats attacking my bird feeder. Send them on down on there. Okay, it has been a busy couple of weeks. First and foremost, to the MILLBRAE residents, we held our first hybrid meeting, first back in person San Francisco Noise Airport meeting. We had to move from the Chet Cootie room because we had that roof leak, but we set up in the library. And at that meeting, I want you to know, and then the related ground-based noise meeting, right now, runway 1 left is down for maintenance. It's down for repaving for the next 2 months. And hopefully people have noticed just how quiet it is tonight and how quiet it is on this pathway. At our ground-based noise meeting, and maps will be coming out, they can show where the runways come, and we're now going to be doing a heat map of where we think the noise is, but we need the people of MILLBRAE. If you're hearing airplane noise, and I know it's tough until the end of May because we're not hearing noise, at least from City Hall over towards where the Green Hills neighborhood is, we need you to complain about noise because we need to actually pinpoint where people are hearing noise. And then we're going to be using a set of 4 mobile noise monitors to verify what type of noise and if the new low frequency noise is picking up something else. Eventually, all of this ties into the fact that under the Federal Aviation Administration, under the noise guidelines they have, only 3 homes in MILLBRAE are considered noisy enough for insulation. Now, all of us living here know that there are by far more homes than that. So if we can prove, and part of the reason for that is the FAA does not include low frequency noise at the back end of airplanes. So our runways predominantly go pointing the rear end towards MILLBRAE. We get that noise. The FAA completely does not count it on that. So we really do need the public to start saying, if you've heard noise, I've never asked you to complain because there wasn't a reason to start collecting it. Now we need you to start collecting that data. Feel free to talk to me, call me, but you can find the report, and we put it in the MILLBRAE News that went out last Friday, and we'll be putting it out through more social media. Coming out of emergency services, which is another thing, so if this is our new process, liaisons to committees, one of the things that we cannot do under emergency services is know who might need assistance if we have to evacuate on that. The fire departments can get it, but it doesn't happen quickly. And if we're trying to get ready to being able to evacuate people, if a flood comes quickly or a fire comes quickly, we need to step up our game. And that's what we'll be talking about in emergency services in a couple of weeks. I met with Senator Becker and had about 30 minutes. I can type up what we talked about, but basically it is the main issues here for MILLBRAE, which is funding for the sewage treatment plant and transportation issues, airplane noise issues. That was a number of other things. You all asked me to report back on what happened in Washington, D.C., and the way the National League of Cities organizes this event, we both met with legislators in person. I actually had 30 minutes alone with Congressman Mullen because the other person from San Mateo County didn't come. So it was a great chance to go into detail of basically at that point, the things that National League of Cities is looking at, but the things that are very specific to MILLBRAE, which again, is the funding for the sewage treatment plant. The congressman has offered a staff person. I need to get that to you for assistance with WIFIA. I met with, then the other thing that NLC did, which really makes it worthwhile to go each year, they brought all the agencies to the convention center. So we could go from meeting to meeting to meeting. So I met with 4 people with the Federal Department of Transportation. I met with 7 people from the US EPA. And then I spoke up at another hearing. And well, for one thing, I met the chief of staff of the FAA, and we had a conversation about the problems with the FAA reauthorization and what we need. Met with the US EPA people are like, we want to help you get WIFIA funding. We are right there for you. And it's not quite that simple. There are other funds that you can get to help match the WIFIA funding. WIFIA funding is a loan program, and then there are these other grant programs. And then it turns out that National League of Cities also has a program to help cities, and they really are trying to target small cities, recognizing that we have fewer resources. But they have a new grant training program and grant resources to help cities identify where you might qualify and where you might not. They do a whole training program that is starting, they're currently accepting applications for it. So city manager, it would be great if we could identify staff who might do that. Council members can go, but we come and go. It's by far better to get staff into this training program. They've already sent me some follow-up emails that I just have to catch up and get out to you. But the training program is free. It helps figure out, does it make sense to apply for this one or does it not make sense? And getting help with it, how to write better grants, the whole program on grant writing, targeted to help cities on that. And then I met with, it turns out at a water equity seminar, I talked about our situation here with MILLBRAE and environmental justice and met the #1 staff person under President Biden who sets the stage for environmental justice and social equity data collection. And I told my story and she came up to me, she actually answered it at the session and then came up to me and she goes, we've created these programs, but what you said, Anne, is the field testing that we need to do. We created this program, we think we're helping people, but you just told us a story where your community, given the situation with the airport, the freeways, the trains, you should be in our program. So we need to follow up and basically tell our story. So I used a couple of different ways of telling our story here, and the one that really carried with Senator Feinstein when we met with them is that MILLBRAE owes its creation to fighting the airport. This is part of our reality. We are, from our beginning, actually an environmental justice community on that. And if we tell our story, and it's an honest story, could help us get the points we need for funding, could help us move to the top of the various federal funding programs, but it's learning how to tell our story. Another thing that National League of Cities do, I sound like I'm a commercial for them, there was a small cities meeting that I went to and they talked about 4 specific programs NLC, National League of Cities has for small cities. And one of them is a video program or a company will come out and help a city tell its story. Quite often it's tourism. And they gave some tourism examples. But I said, well, would you be able to tell our story of why we need help for XYZ? And they said, yes, we would. The way they get their money once they create the tourism video is a hotel will sign on to it. So they get their money out the other way, but they provide these videos, and it can be up to 8 storytelling videos to a city. They've also reached back to me on that. And city manager, I know we talked about it while I was in DC, that we need to have a meeting with staff, probably more so public works staff and finance staff, to take what I learned out in Washington and bring it back to MILLBRAE and get moving on it. Same thing, I owe Senator Becker some follow-up for his questions about the water that we want. He loved the idea of going to tertiary water in the meeting. Congressman Mullen also loved that program. So we just have to tell our story on that. I think that was the main ones. There's some great connections back there. Really quickly, also attended the collegiate golf tournament. Congratulations, all the women for there. As a former collegiate athlete, it is just super to see them. One of the Stanford coaches is also a Bruin. She played golf for them, though, instead of swimming. But it was a great event. I did talk to them. They would like to come back next year. It would be lovely if the city got more involved. The women stayed at various hotels. It'll be nice to find out if they stayed at MILLBRAE hotels. And as a former athlete, we stayed in hotels. For UCLA, we once stayed at a Hyatt and we had to move to a cheaper hotel. So it would benefit us to find out where the women are staying and then help them bring the tournament back next year. The Pan Am Flight 7 dedication was a week ago, and so much, a week ago. I want to give a huge shout out to Justine Bleeker, who helped write just a phenomenal presentation for that. They were so happy. I had people who lost their parents back in 1957 and came up to me and said, this is the first time they've had a place to go and say goodbye to their father or their mother or their favorite school teacher, a San Mateo school teacher who was a Pan Am flight attendant because there were so few flights back then. It wasn't a full-time job. So a beautiful event, a huge shout out to staff who helped with that and to the MILLBRAE Historical Society. And I encourage everyone to go up to the Blue Historical Museum. You can see the dedication there. Again, we got coverage for that event on most of the video news programs because, and the way they said it, they go, yeah, MILLBRAE has a relationship to the airport. That's CRON and KPIX. Yeah, they have a relationship with the airport, but it was a beautiful event. City Manager, I'm sorry you couldn't be there. And then I would close in saying that next week on April 20th is the grand opening of the gateway at MILLBRAE Station. There'll be events. I encourage everybody to come on down. There are 9 new pieces of public art down there. And right now the retail hasn't moved in, but hopefully we can be able to say, hey, we're going to go down and grab a coffee. Chick-fil-A is coming. Panda Express is coming. But we'll be able to go down there and walk the corridor. I've been walking it with different media people over the last couple of weeks. It is really something to celebrate. With that, I am done. If there's no other comments, please go ahead.
Yeah, just want to share some exciting news. I'm incredibly excited to share that a recent victory of the Aragon High School Robotic Club for winning the Engineering Inspiration Award at the Central Valley Regional Robotics Championship. Yep, and the team has done an incredibly successful outreach effort in bringing engineering and STEM excellence to underrepresented communities, empowering girls, Girl Scouts, students of all ages, individuals with learning disabilities, and other communities through a robust outreach program. And now they are going to the 2023 first robotic competitions world championship in Houston, Texas. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for many of these youth, and quite a number of the members within the robotic teams are our own MILLBRAE kids. So incredibly proud, go MILLBRAE kids.
Excellent. Thank you. And with that, we are closing in honor of MILLBRAE residents Julianne Brigitte Zeicheng and Jean Frank Fragendorfer. So with that, thank you all. MILLBRAE adjourned at 9:33 p.m.